to grab a beverage of your choice and a little project while you're watching my video today. It's going to be a long one, and I get a little choked up at the end, so stay tuned. I've slathered 2 acorn squash halves with butter, added some maple syrup and a sprinkling of Redmond's real salt, and these are going to bake in the oven while I'm out painting some rain barrels. It's 65 degrees out today. It's January 14th. That is 105 degrees warmer than it was a couple weeks ago when we had minus 45 degrees. It's a perfect day then to paint these rain barrels. What I'm gonna do is put one of these on my garage to collect rainwater off the garage to plant the backside plants, like where my corn patch and stuff was last year, and then the other 2 are going to collect rainwater off the house, and I'll put those in series, and those I will water as much as I can for the garden. And the paint that was recommended to me is this Krylon Fusion. It's supposed to adhere to the plastic barrels. Well, if I had been a little quicker and maybe not so breezy out, I would have gotten by with 1 can for the first coat. It's a little streaky. Hopefully the second coat will fix that. Can number 2 did a pretty good job. 2 coats does a pretty good job. This is the first barrel, all painted. I think it's covered pretty well. I don't really see any thin spots, and I got the first coat on the second barrel. I figured I'd better do it today because it's gonna snow here in a few days. Actually tomorrow, I think. It gets cold again, so gotta make hay while the sun shines. It's just above 55 degrees, so I just barely made it with the second coat on the second barrel, and my fingers have blisters, but done. But I'm gonna let these sit outside for an hour before I can move them into the garage again. It's Sunday morning. I've decided I'm going to make some sous vide egg bites. I've got 6 eggs, you can't see them, from my girlfriend, Erin. 6 eggs and a cup of heavy cream. I'm going to put in some salt and pepper, some shredded cheddar cheese, and don't hate, but I'm using the microwave bacon from Sam's. 1 slice in each of 6 jars, and then I'm also going to add some of my fermented cherry tomatoes, maybe 1 in each jar. Mixed up the eggs and cream. Now I'm going to pour that evenly into 6 half-pint jars, and then I will add 1 piece of crumbled bacon and about just some sprinkles of shredded cheese, and then about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a shake of black pepper into each jar. Got the bacon in. I just need to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of real salt and some pepper to each one, and then I've got my 6 little nests of cheese. That's probably too much, but that's what I'm going with, to put into each jar as well. Everything's in. I'm just going to give them a little dunk. I don't want that salt, especially the salt, to be concentrated in one spot. And I know they'll circulate a little bit, but this will just make sure. Kind of mix that stuff up. I'm going to have to clean the rims because I just slimed a rim. This is also a good time for me to use my stash of used lids, but these will be fine, these used lids, for sous vide, because they're just going to be in the fridge for a few days, but as long as they seal good enough to cook properly in the sous vide, I'm going to reuse them. And while my sous vide bath is hot, I'm also going to grind up some of my homegrown corn, the coarse polenta that comes off of there, to make some sous vide polenta for tonight's dinner. You can find instructions for this and the polenta that I'm going to be making later today in the awesome sous vide meal prep book by Chelsea Cole, which I had the honor of testing a few recipes and getting a mention. And while I was getting those ready, the post office on a Sunday delivered my new dehydrator. I found this is the same brand as my new air fryer, but I researched, I didn't realize they had a food dehydrator, and I was so happy with my air fryer that I researched this, and it's just a teensy bit smaller, like an inch on each side smaller of the trays, but the specs are about the same as the way more expensive Excalibur dehydrator, so I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm excited to have more room to dehydrate herbs and foraged items, jerky, fruit leathers, all kinds of stuff this summer. Let's kind of do an unboxing. The trays, there is one mesh tray in here. I have some more on order just because I figured I might need them. It only comes with the one. And then here's a lipped fruit leather tray. And with one of the 10 wire stainless steel trays. And then here's the machine. It's beautiful. It's got the glass front. It has you can adjust the temperature, you can adjust the time. Little recipe book. There's quite a few in here. I'm excited to go through those and figure out what I want to make first. It says that the trays, not the plastic ones, the metal trays are dishwasher safe. These, of course, are for smaller items that shrink down, like herbs, and that's why I ordered more of these, because I do a lot of herbs in my dehydrating. So I'll include a link in the description box below to this exact model and to the extra sheets that I ordered. This is my laundry folding table in my old basement. This is not where I want to keep it because I want my folding space instead. Let's get this set to 165. I hit the time and temp button. I need to bump up the temp to 165 for 30 minutes. So it does half-hour increments, and I know minimum is 30 minutes. I know it does up to 48. Well, I'm having a time. I broke a jar, so now I only have 5. But let's get these finger-tight jars into the sous vide bath, and then I will start the time and temp. I need 185 for 30 minutes. Go. And they should start bubbling and sinking. And then I'll put the cover on. So since I'm trying to use up more of my freezer food on a more consistent basis, I was digging down there for something else, and I found this apple pie mix that I made from the apples I got last fall from my girlfriend's grandparents' yard. So I'm making, that's all ready to go. All I need to do is make the pie crust. And I won't include the full process or recipe, but I am using my hand-rendered lard, which I have a video, full video for that. And I also have a full video on how to make the flakiest pie crust. So check through my videos and find those if you want to see how I make it. Pie crusts are ready. Future me, thanks past me for thinking of this. Looks great. Just need to put the top on and bake it. I coated the top of the pie crust with a little bit of cream. I didn't want to waste an egg, you know, with the way eggs are right now. So it's just cream, and then I also sprinkled some of my homemade vanilla sugar over the top of that. And then with the scraps, because I, for some reason, had extra pie crust today, quite a bit of it, I sprinkled those scraps with cinnamon, and then I'm going to sprinkle some of my homemade brown sugar that has vanilla beans in it. And we usually do these, they're the scraps, and they can be eaten before the pie is done. So I'll sprinkle all of that with the brown sugar and then get these baked. The last thing I'm going to do before lunch is grind up some of my homegrown corn, Mandan bride corn. Check one of my gardening videos for growing that and getting it shelled. But I want to make polenta. let's get it sifted through my 2-sifter system to be able to get out the grits and the polenta, leaving the finest flour in the bottom. I have a whole video about this, so you can watch that, but I'm going to get this passed through. And it's not, because those are multicolored kernels, it's not the bright yellow cornmeal that you're used to, but it should be better being homegrown. I just got the sous vide egg bites out of the sous vide bath. I'm leaving the cover on the sous vide bath, though, to keep it hot, because I'm getting ready to put that polenta in there as well. Those should be good for breakfast this week. I got my typical yield from that 1.5 cups of corn, about 1/4 cup of grits, 1/4 cup of polenta, and the rest 1.5 cups of cornmeal. The thing is, I want 1/2 cup of polenta. I'm going to do another 1.5 cups, and then the grits and the cornmeal will go in the freezer. It doesn't keep very well being fresh ground, but I need to do that in order to get a full 1/2 cup of polenta. 3 cups of my homegrown Mandan Bride flint/dent corn at the current setting I had on my mill gave me about 1/2 cup of grits and a little more than 1/2 cup of the polenta that I was wanting, and about 3 cups of the cornmeal. It turned out pretty nice. It's just not yellow like you're used to, because it's that homegrown Mandan Bride multicolored corn kernels. My polenta is sealed up in a food saver bag. It's the polenta grains, the milk, chicken broth, butter, salt, and pepper. The only thing that I will add when it's all done after 2 hours in the 185-degree sous vide bath is stir in the Parmesan. This is going to be so good. And then, since it's total liquid, so I did not vacuum it, I just sealed it. I am going to put my weight over the top of that. Looks like I need to adjust my weight just to make sure that that bag doesn't float up and not cook evenly or properly. There. Polenta is in the works. And the timer just went off for the apple pie. Oh, it looks great. And the scraps that we baked that I took out way earlier, those look good too, and they smell great. Okay, the polenta is in the sous vide machine. All the dishes are washed. Everything's put away. I am finally sitting down. It's like, I don't know, 1:30 or 2 o'clock. I've got some coffee, one of those egg bites that turned out really good, some blueberries, and some of those pie crust crisps. I'm going to sit down finally and relax for the first time since 6 a.m., go through my dehydrator recipe book, and catch up on some of my favorite YouTubers. For dinner, we're making Instant Pot stuffed pepper soup. I sauteed a pound of ground beef in some olive oil, along with some shallots out of the garden and garlic chopped up out of the garden. We put in about 1 cup of rice, because I was a little bit short on beef. It should have been 1.5 pounds, and a carton of 4 cups of chicken broth, 2 packages of my frozen garden-grown bell peppers chopped up, basil, oregano, thyme, paprika, a jar of our home-canned tomato sauce, a pint one, and a can of Rotel, plus salt and pepper. This goes on high pressure for 10 minutes. All right, the polenta in the sous vide, I stirred in the Parmesan, but I think it's better done in a saucepan where some of the liquid can evaporate, because it's still a little soupy. It tastes great, but it's not the texture of polenta at all. It just, when I reheat it tomorrow, I will put it in the saucepan on the stovetop. Here is our stuffed pepper soup. So freaking good. And we're having a piece of apple pie with my famous pie crust.
I don't think that I'm being that selfish right now. You said yourself you'd be breaking every vow. I can understand you're tired of this town, and I'm not saying that we have to settle down now. Just remember this: we could have been stardust, same world but without us. Something made us find each other out there.
After replacing my kitchen faucet and having to take everything out from underneath the cupboard, I realized that I wanted a little better storage solution. So today we're going to fix that problem with Pumpkin's help.
Made us realize we're more than just stardust. Ignore this fact if you must, to do what your dreams are telling you to do. And I'll be out there looking for someone like you. Stardust, stardust. Ooh, yeah. I'm the lazy one, so I guess I should have known. You said yourself you wanna do this alone. What if your dreams are making it hard to think straight? If you still love me, I can wait, I can wait. And remember this.
Oh, getting those adhesive rings were a little difficult getting the placement of, but I think it's all in there and secure now. I just need to put stuff back.
We could have been stardust, same world but without us. Something made us find each other out there. Made us realize we're more than just stardust. Ignore this fact if you must, to do what your dreams are telling you to do. And I'll be out there looking for someone like you.
I think that's much better. I got my little kitchen fire extinguisher hung up. Everything's back in except for a couple of tinctures and oxymels and homemade vinegars and cleaners I need to strain and put those back in and make another. Well, and then here, let's look at this. This shelf pulls out and I've got stuff behind there that I can access, but this makes this a little more accessible. Oh, all the little weird doohickeys are up off of the floor surface, so I can have a little more breathing room down here. Worked out great. The last thing I need to do as I'm cleaning out my sink, underneath my sink after replacing my faucet and putting that organizing unit in, is I need to bottle up my homemade apple cider vinegar. It's evaporated for so much I've just ignored it, but it's definitely vinegar now. I need to put that in a jar, and then I need to strain out some of my odd concoctions that I've had under the sink into appropriate storage vessels. This is my rose hip oxymel, wild foraged. These are my homegrown calendula petals where I made the body butter, the tallow body butter out of. This is the oil that's been infused, and this is a calendula flower petal tincture in alcohol. And this thing is, geez, I think it's 1.5 years old, but this is a spruce tip Mugolio. Let's get rid of that reflection. Spruce tip Mugolio, and it's spruce tips and sugar. Some of my raw cane sugar that I get at Azure Standard. So I'm going to strain that out so it doesn't start molding. And let's see, I need to refer to my own video to remind myself of the recipe for all-purpose vinegar cleaner, because it's time, long past time, to strain out my various citrus rinds that I've been putting in this jar for homemade citrus vinegar cleaner. And let's see, I think that's all of my odd concoctions from underneath the sink. So I'm going to get to straining and jarring these up. I definitely want to get all the goodness out of the bottom too, so that I carry over the mother and the good bacteria that's in here that's been fermenting. And with vinegars, you really don't want to use metal lids, so I'm using one of these plastic lids, and I'll include a source in the description box for these lids. There's make sure you go with the one that I link to, because I've tried a couple different varieties, and there's a difference in the gaskets, and one is a real pain in the ass, which is what this one is, but I've got it, and the other one is much better. So there's my homemade apple scrap vinegar jarred up. Now I need to do some straining here. I'm just making sure that my notes on the lid are included in the label that's going on the bottle, so I don't forget what I did. Ooh, that smells good. It's pungent, but it definitely has a rosehip smell to it. Rosehips are very high in vitamin C. I'm just doing it a little bit at a time to make sure that my little baby funnel doesn't get overwhelmed. I feel like I should do something with these rose hips, but we're getting the essence out of them. You know what? Just in case I come up with something to use them in, I am going to save them just for a little bit here until I look into it. We'll add that to my wild foraged homegrown apothecary. Let's next do the calendula tincture. I don't recall if I used vodka or what I used for that one. It smells like, it might be rum. Anyway, let's get these petals filtered out. I don't want to get too crazy pressing weird particles through, but I want to get all the good stuff out of those petals. Let's get the label on this one. Next, I'm trying to do least greasy. Let's do the spruce tip magolio. Oh, it smells sweet and sprucey, or imagine piney, and kind of lemony. This can be used in cooking. Look at how thick. It's almost like honey from that sugar, and then probably some of the resins created some thickness, but this can be used in cooking, and it's probably got good medicinal properties too. Maybe a cough syrup base, I don't know. I'd have to look into that, but I know it's good for culinary uses. I lightly pressed down on those just to make sure, again, that I got the most out of the extraction, but not so hard that I introduced any solids that I didn't want in my syrup. But these spruce tips look beautiful. I'm actually gonna taste one right now, and I feel like I should save these for use in these would be great used in ice cream or something. Oh, that is good. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna save these temporarily until I figured out what to do with them. There we go. That's our jar of spruce tip magolio. Again, I'm gonna taste it. Oh, that is super good. That'd be really good in some tea made from wild foraged and garden grown flower petals and herbs. Dang, that's good. The last thing is my calendula infused oil. Let's get this. This has been steeping for plenty of time since, it's January 2023. And this was probably started in August or September of last year. That's enough time. And I did use some for that tallow body butter in my previous video from a few weeks back. And it turned out beautifully with this, so we know it's ready. And we'll just try to get as much as we can without creating any turbidity in the oil by pressing too much. It's interesting, you can hear the petals. I'm pretty sure I dried the petals before I put them in the oil. And because it's oil that doesn't absorb well, they're still kind of crunchy. But those are beautiful. You could probably use these in muffins or something at this point. Again, great idea. I'm going to save these. I keep coming up with ideas. That's a great idea to put them in muffins, because you use oil in muffins anyway, right? And they wouldn't put a whole bunch in there, but just enough to maybe flavor. Not much flavor. That doesn't mean they aren't valuable. There's a ton of good compounds that are in calendulas. There's our calendula oil so that I can make some more skincare products from it. The last thing is my great big jar of citrus peels that I have in vinegar to create my own homemade cleaning solutions. And with that is my all-purpose vinegar cleaner. I just need to go review my previous video where I showed you guys how to make this and review my recipe so that I mix it up properly. And there we have it. This is how one project leads to another. You remember I had to replace my kitchen faucet, and that caused me to buy a new organizer and clean this entire thing out, get my kitchen fire extinguisher installed so that it's out of the way. But everything looks great. It's organized. I have more space down here. This makes accessing much easier and allows vertical storage, which I love. So that project is done now. And I also, in the process, got all of my strange extractions from my wild foraged items and homemade things done. This is my apple scrap vinegar. I will put that in the pantry. This is the calendula oil. I'll probably put that downstairs where it's out of the light. This is my spruce tip magolio syrup. That is probably going to go in the fridge. And then we have my wild rosehip oxymel made with apple cider vinegar and honey. And then the calendula alcohol tincture. And that will also probably go downstairs with the rest of my tinctures, such as my excess wild bitter mix that I made for digestion. Dishes washed and dried, everything's put away. I just washed up for the first time these silicone suction lids that go on bowls and jars and cups and things. I think I'm late to the game on these. You probably already have a set of these, but this is another thing that is going to go a long ways towards my efforts at reducing waste and using plastic wrap, paper towels, things like that. So I'm hoping that these really work well. But I'll include a link for these in the description box too. They're colorful as well. I like that. And I do not need to bake sourdough bread this weekend. So all I'm doing is feeding it. I've got my starter. I've just added 4 ounces of flour, and I'm going to add 4 ounces of lukewarm water, stir it up, and put it back in. I've already discarded what was not needed out of my starter batch, and that went back in the fridge. As I was finally finishing up all my projects for the day so that I can chill, a package came. And it was my King Arthur flower order. I'm so excited about this. So I got one of the boxed foil dispensers to go with my parchment paper and saran wrap dispenser. Makes life so much easier and just cleaner and not having floppy boxes around. And this beautiful Springerly cookie mold. It's wood. It says replica by House on the Hill. Just gorgeous. It reminds me of my Courier Knives dishes. So I'm excited for that. That was on sale. That's the only reason I got that. And then the biggest excitement is these bowls. I had a coupon otherwise, and I debated over this the first time they came out, it was right around Christmas, and then they were out right away. But quite an expense, but I did have a coupon. But these mixing bowls, oh my goodness. Look at how beautiful these are. They have scenery on them. They're called, I forget what they're called. It's Mason Cash Farmyard Collection. In the Farmyard, it's called. But it's got, this one has orchard trees, horses, a barn. Let's see what else is on here. And then the medium bowl, trying to be careful here. The medium bowl is pigs. Super cute with the sunrise. And then I think this little one, I think the little one's my favorite. Chickens. I miss my girls so much, but you can't have them in town, which is really unfortunate that our governing body won't allow chickens in town. But look at this beautiful set of bowls. Just love it. I just had to get my coconut oil reserve tub out of the root cellar, so I'm gonna start looking again for this to go on sale at Sam's is where I get it. But that's how you want to keep your pantry. I had my working tub was upstairs here in the pantry. This one in reserve was down in the root cellar. I'm using it now, so I need to get another one for downstairs. I've got some leftover pomegranates I got around the holidays on sale, and some leftover blueberries, some home canned applesauce, and I want to create in my new 10 tray dehydrator that I absolutely love, and I'll include links for that. It's not an Excalibur. I want to make some blueberry pomegranate fruit leather. Might as well, so I'm not wasting the pomegranates and blueberries I have. First I need to get the pomegranate seeds out. I'm going to juice it with just a hand juicer, and then we'll whiz it all up. So we're going to try to do this a way I've never done it, but it seems to be easier. I'm just going to score that top cap, and this is the what I call the crown end, and then we can see where the membrane edges are, so we'll just score down that way for each membrane. I can't see that one, but we're going to assume it's about in there. There's one. Here's one. Okay, and then we should be able to pull it open, kind of at those membrane joints. I didn't score all the way down to the bottom, my bad. Some of the seeds are coming right out already. But apparently what we want to do at this point is... Okay, I forgot there was water in there. Okay, got my water mess cleaned up. Let's try this again. So you're supposed to have a bowl of water, and then you kind of, as you're peeling the seeds out, you hold it under water, and that will help float off the membrane that you don't want in there, because the membrane and actually the pits are kind of what can cause some bitterness. So just like citrus with the pith, you don't want it, or the membranes. So getting the seeds out either underwater or into the water will help that separate. All right, I've got all the seeds out, and you can see how the membranes and the pith kind of floats to the top. Stuff that fell in or was stuck to some of the seeds, and this is makes it easy then with them floating in water, unless you kind of need to massage them a little bit. Some of them still have gunk on them, or it might be underneath. But this allows you to easily get most of that out before you juice it. I did drain these off, and now I'm going to start. I do have an Omega, one of those nice cold press auger type juicers, but I don't want to get it out and have to clean it for this. That's why I'm going to try to just use, I'm just going to try to use my citrus squeezer, and we'll see how that goes. I love it. I feel like I need to really fill it up though to get it to press efficiently. Oop. I'm using my little Ninja food processor. So this is, I'm gonna guess this is about 1.5 cups of blueberries. They're getting a little mushy, but we're using them up. I'm gonna add maybe 1/4 cup of applesauce. This is pretty chunky. I did not make it super smooth on purpose. I'm gonna add actually more than that, maybe 1/2 cup, because I know I'm short on blueberries. And then, I haven't tasted this yet. Good. It's not very sweetened, and they call for unsweetened, but this will be fine. I did add a little sugar when I can that, but not very much. And this is way more. The recipe that I found called for 2 tablespoons. This is easily 1/2 cup of pomegranate juice, and that's okay. It's just gonna take longer to dehydrate, probably. I don't want to waste anything. Try to get it all scraped out here. Now I don't have, this is my, I love this dehydrator. 10 trays, half the price of an Excalibur, and it has the same specifications. This is the only thing I'm going to dehydrate today in here. I've got the tray in the middle. So let's get that slid in and we'll get it started here. I need to plug it in because I keep it unplugged. Let's hit temp and time. So it's already at 165. I need 4 hours. There we go, 4 hours. So we're gonna let that go. Blueberry, pomegranate, apple, fruit leather. Sous vide egg bites are all done. I just need to cool them before I can put them in the fridge for this week's breakfast. Well, shoot, I totally forgot to bring you along for Sunday night dinner prep. I made some cornbread out of the Better Homes and Gardens, the red and white checkbook, that recipe, but using, instead of yellow cornmeal, I used my hand ground Mandan Bride cornmeal that I showed you. And we've got beef stew going. This is our favorite. I sauteed some onion in some olive oil, added garden sliced carrots and garden celery and garden garlic chopped up, and a quart jar of our home canned beef, which I did a whole video on a while back. You can search my videos for that. And then also 2 cartons of beef broth. I didn't use my home canned beef broth for this one. My son made up a double batch of the Better Homes and Gardens noodles. This is the chicken noodle soup noodles, and we cut them into rectangles so they're bite-sized instead of great big long noodles. And we omit the thyme because I added garden thyme that was dehydrated and parsley that my folks dehydrated out of their garden. So we didn't put any thyme in the noodles. And my blueberry, pomegranate, applesauce, fruit leather is done. I had a sticking issue. I didn't even think about putting a little layer of oil, so I stuck on one edge. I'm going to cut these into strips and roll them up between parchment and put them in a jar. The first thing I needed was a piece of parchment from my parchment dispenser. I'll include a link for that, so I can lay that piece of fruit leather, the whole sheet, on top of the parchment. I've got the whole thing on the parchment. All I did was put the parchment on top of that whole tray and then flip the whole thing over. So now I'm going to roll this up in a tight roll. I have to put you down to do it, but I'm going to roll it up into a tight roll, and then I can cut it into appropriate lengths. And I got my kitchen twine out, and I think what I want to do is like tie these up before I start cutting. That seems like it would make it a lot easier. All right, we have these approximately evenly spaced. I'm gonna say so. So I just really need to cut in between now. We'll see if this works. I think so. Hopefully there's not too many paper shreds. Let's see if I can do it without cutting my hand or the string. Whee! Caught it. The extra flour scraped off the counter that we used to roll out will just thicken the broth. I'm making sure that I stir so we don't get stuck together lumps. And we do a double batch of noodles for our 1 jar of beef and 2 cartons of beef broth. Got them all? Mm-hmm. Nice. So we'll let this cook for 15 or 20 minutes. Homegrown, home ground corn. And I've got my cousin's Doobie family maple syrup out to put on top of that. When I have time, I am also working on my goal of finishing up the Afghan sampler I started, 2 years ago. I'm on block 25 of 30, and I think this one, even though it was fairly difficult, turned out pretty good. It means it'll be the perfect day to finish the last 2 blocks of my crocheted Afghan sampler, and then tomorrow I hope that I can get it all put together. I didn't sleep well last night, but I still got up early. I brought some work home, and about 10:30 I finally got my fire going, which of course Pumpkin loves. Pumpkin? Hi, kitty kitty. And I really wanted to use up the cranberries left over from the home canned cranberry juice that we had last night with our breakfast for dinner. I don't want to waste these cranberries, so I'm going to put these into the zucchini chocolate chip muffins that I'm going to make. And I've shared this recipe and showed you how I do this before. I've already got most of my dry ingredients in the bowl, this bowl. Oh, and by the way, these are those 2 of the 3 new bowls that I got. Love them, they're so pretty. I've got all the wet ingredients, including the zucchini, in this bowl. I just need to add the cranberries. And I want to use some of my acorn flour. I've got half of the flour needed, just regular King Arthur flour, in the bowl, and I will add the other half in acorn flour. I may need to add more because I did not reduce my liquid ingredients to account for the juicy cranberries. And I'm also using today these really cool new muffin liners that I got. I'll include a source in the description box for these so that you can get some too if you'd like them. So let's get the rest of these mixed up and in the oven, and that will be a good use of some of the shredded zucchini that is in my freezer that I trade raspberries for with my neighbor. And I've still got lots of it in the freezer, and it'll use up those cranberries that I really don't want to throw away. Plus, I get to use my acorn flour. They took a little bit of extra time just because they had more liquid in them, plus the acorn flour probably needs more too, but they look pretty good.
welcome to Rowan Grace. Welcome to Rodeo, Rapid City. We welcome back top 10 finalists on The Voice. Rapid City Central High School junior, Rowan Grace. Let's do it! Let's ride!
I also wanted to show you that I did finish my Annie's Crochet sampler block afghan. Taught myself to crochet with this. I bought the pattern, but not their yarn or video classes, so it was a bit of a struggle in some cases for some of the stitches, but pretty proud of myself for finishing. It's pretty obvious, which I think this might have been my first block. One of those is around there, but this was the last block of 30, and it's kind of a cable knit sweater. Love that one. I love this waffle weave one. I'm not crazy about the open weave stitches so much, but this one has flowers in it. But overall, I don't have the space to lay it all out to show you, but love some of these chunkier blocks. The shell stitch one, love it. I think that was a shell stitch one. And then the border turned out really cool. I'm really happy with it. And I think next on my list is to get some snowshoeing in, although the weather's been so warm. I don't know if that's going to happen. But it's on my list. And then I also want to get my ham radio license. So I'm picking my battles here. But I think I might actually start another afghan of a different style where it's not blocks that have to be stitched together, but a solid color turquoise or teal one that would match my couch called a Gansey style. That kind of also looks like RN sweater, with my Irish heritage. And then I also ordered an actual kit from Annie's for a medallion afghan that I'm excited to do. Anyway, it's done, and I'm super happy with it. "10 years ago, Robin Wall Kimmerer published this book in 2013. The message is, the ancestors looked to them from the flickering light of distant fires. In this time, the young would turn back to the elders for teachings and find that many had nothing to give. The path ahead is divided. They must make a choice in their path to the future. One of the roads is soft and green with new grass. You could walk barefoot there. The other path is scorched black, hard. The cinders would cut your feet. If the people choose the grassy path, then life will be sustained. But if they choose the cinder path, the damage they have wrought upon the earth will turn against them and bring suffering and death to earth's people. We do indeed stand at a crossroads. Scientific evidence tells us that we are close to the tipping point of climate change, the end of fossil fuels, the beginning of resource depletion. Ecologists estimate that we would need 7 planets to sustain the lifeways we have created, and yet those lifeways, lacking balance, justice, and peace, have not brought us contentment. They carry in their bundles the precious seeds for a change of worldview, not so they can return to atavistic utopia, but to find the tools that allow us to walk into the future. So much has been forgotten, but it is not lost as long as the land endures and we cultivate people who have the humility and ability to listen and learn. What knowledge the people have forgotten is remembered by the land. The path is lined with all the world's people in all colors of the medicine wheel, red, white, black, yellow, who understand the choice ahead, who share a vision of respect and reciprocity, of fellowship with the more than human world. Friends and allies all, they are falling in step, forming a great long line headed for the barefoot path. None of us can recognize every piece, let alone carry it all. We need each other to take a song, a word, a story, a tool, a ceremony, and put it in our bundles, not for ourselves, but for the ones yet to be born, for all our relations. Whew. Those passages describe exactly why I think that my work here on my YouTube channel is so important. To be able to provide knowledge for people who live not just in the forests that have the ability to return to skills that our ancestors learned to live with the land and with each other, but even in modern times we can do this as backyard homesteaders, urban foragers, gardeners, and home cooks. I sincerely believe this, and I hope that this journey on my YouTube channel with you is helpful and sparks an interest in being more sustainable and walking that green path. I appreciate all of you, and I love this earth. I love the nature that we have available to us. We need to walk that green path together, and I appreciate your being here.